Welcome to the Enriched Life podcast. My name is Jordan Clark and I'm the lead pastor of Enriched Life. Enriched Life is a brand new church plant in Regina, Saskatchewan, and we meet every Monday night, 6:45 p.m. at Stone's Throw Coffee Collective. We also do more casual Bible studies on the University of Regina campus on Thursday nights, 6 p.m. at the Adham Pit, where the financial service building is. It's that main common area in that building, and we meet every Thursday night to have a more conversational study around the scripture that we learned on the Monday night for that week. Our goal in Enriched Life is to have our lives enriched by the power of Jesus Christ. We point ourselves towards the gospel every single week, and we learn about Jesus throughout the entirety of scripture, as the whole of the Bible points towards the victory and the hope and that is found in Jesus Christ and his death and resurrection. Our meetings are for anyone, not just students. Our main demographic is students, but we want to be a multi-generational church that loves Jesus, that serves one another, and that serves the community so that people can see the gospel living. That's our goal. So today, grab a cup of coffee, grab your Bibles, and we're going to dive into this week's teaching. Welcome to the Enriched Life podcast. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast and being a part of the Enriched Life community. We are so happy to start a brand new type of show or episode. We typically do sermons on our podcast, but today we are not just doing a sermon. It's actually a sit-down conversation with Randy Bowen, who is going to be leading our financial coaching night on March the 6th. 6:45 p.m. at Stone's Throw Coffee Collective. That's our next financial coaching night. We did one back in November. A lot of the students that came really liked it, and so we're bringing Randy back. But Randy is here, and we want to do these conversational episodes once in a while. We want to get to know different people, testimonies, and hone in on spiritual and practical things that we can better in our lives as we walk with God in our faith. So that's all that being said, let's welcome Randy. How's it going, Randy?
It's going really good. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do? What gives you the ability to do financial stuff, all that stuff? Let us know who you are.
Yeah, so right now I'm currently just a support worker. So I work as a support worker with adults with disabilities, but on the side, I do financial coaching. I call it legacy coaching because ultimately I'm teaching people how to build a legacy for them and their family through their finances and all of that. If you want the whole entire backstory, I can tell you the backstory on how I got connected with just becoming a legacy coach and wanting to see people win in their finances. So this all kind of came around when I was initially struggling with debt itself. I realized that I was jumping from job to job and not wanting to go to the next job, but having to, because I had no option. I had no money. I was in debt. I had a line of credit. I had credit cards. I had a car loan that, although at the time seemed like attainable or not attainable, seemed doable, it just ate away at my income very, very quickly. So I had all of those things and I just was tired of it. And so ultimately what ended up happening was I got in connection with just you know who I'm talking about, a Dave Ramsey's show. And I just started listening to him. And at first I thought that he was just kind of a little crazy. He's just kind of a little mad, kind of a little okay, whatever. But I listened to a few of his shows and I thought I would take one part of his advice. And one part of his advice was just simply write down all the debts that you have and all of your minimum payments and all of this stuff. And if you write it down, you're more than likely going to be more shocked with how much you actually have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, oh, okay, you know what? Just for just for fun, I'm going to do this. So I did. I wrote down all of my debts that I had, and I wrote down all my minimum payments and all that stuff. And I was actually very surprised how much I actually did have. I had a lot more debt than I thought.
Mm.
For whatever reason, like, you don't calculate all those things when you just live off minimum payments. You don't calculate that. And then once you do calculate that, you realize, I mean, I was $26,000 in debt as
Wow.
a guy like working a almost minimum wage job,
Hmm.
trying to live off commission, which I've now realized I'm not a salesperson.
Right.
It's just not, I can't do that. So I really needed to just get myself out of debt. And so I went with his steps. I got a different job that like paid a lot more. And yeah, I ended up getting out of line of credit, getting out of my credit cards, and like ultimately selling my car.
Hmm.
And then in this whole process, I actually sat down with a financial advisor, and he explained to me, he sat down, he said, like, I wanted to show you a stat. And he showed me a stat that at the time it's grown significantly more, but he showed me the stat that every Canadian spends a dollar, or the average Canadian spends $1.47 for every dollar that they make.
Mm.
That's insane
It's
if you
pretty
think about it.
that's pretty staggering, eh? Like when you
Yeah.
just break
Yeah.
it down like that. I think it's interesting how you started this whole process going down this road in your life where you just started looking at, yeah, minimum payments, like what's going out of my account, what am I committed to payment wise, right?
Mhm.
I don't think we realize how much is leaving our accounts until we sit down and really see how much is actually leaving our accounts. It sounds like a simple concept, but it's so easy just to not realize how much you are spending and how much is going out. And it's almost like, yeah, like how much even financing you agree to, and all, like you don't even realize it, right? Because you think you need certain things when you don't, like a brand new car, when you don't need a brand new car, you need a car,
Yeah,
right?
you need a car.
But it's like, do you need to spend $20,000 on a car and have $400 a month payments, or can you spend $4,000 and pay for it in cash? You know what I mean? So I think even just I like the simple process of just starting small, like in that small spot of understanding what are you paying, right? And
Yeah.
writing everything down is like awesome because it's like
Oh,
there,
it's
it comes out of your brain and it's like there, and you're like, whoa, you know, it's like this
yeah,
external
yeah.
thing.
Writing things down is really key to showcasing you, like, what where you're actually at.
Right.
And I mean, uh if you're a growth like guru who just like loves to grow and loves to like challenge themselves and whatever else, like, you'll know that the stats are actually in your favor to write things down.
Hmm.
You are 47% more likely to achieve your goals by simply writing it down.
Yes.
That's
Because it
significant.
because it helps. It even helps you organize thoughts. It helps you, like when I don't write my list down for what I need to get done in a week or even in a day, just because I'm technically am self-employed. Like a lot of my job is like I make my own schedules and all that stuff, right? Like
Hmm.
my head when I don't do that is just a mess. Like it even helps you organize, and it helps you, like I said before, keep track. So yeah, and gets it out of yourself, and you can see an objective thing that is not in your brain. It's like in front of you, and you can put it on your wall or whatever. I think that's really important. So we're bringing you back. The reason why I wanted you in the first place is because money is a tough thing for everyone. I think almost everyone has struggled with money to different extents in their life. And it is something that the Bible talks about as well. It's something that we can drown in, that causes a lot of people to want to hurt themselves and commit suicide in our culture as well because of the debts they get in. We also have the other side where people just don't even care about their debt. And they're like, I'm going to die one day, and they don't realize their debt has to get paid somehow, right?
Hmm.
So you have families that kind of get really messed up because of that, because then the kids have to pay the debt or whatever, or it passes down, or government will come after you, people will come after you, right? Collection agencies will come after you. So people don't realize that either. They're so like flippant with it, and they don't really care, and they don't realize there is weight to money and credit and all that. So tonight we're just going to do a real broad focus on a couple of concepts you hit on in our last session when you came to do the coaching night. And we want to teach, this is kind of like an intro to a lot of things, because we do want to aim towards that university student level, and how can you be good with money as a student, and what are some healthy habits to learn as a young person that will help you with money down the road when you have more, that kind of stuff. So if you want to ask Randy any questions, if you want to ask him questions even before March 6th, you can just email us at info@enrichedregina.com, or we'll have a QR code on the video of this or in the description of the podcast, our Slido room, where you can ask any question you want for the next week. And we'll give those to Randy before March 6th if you do it early enough. Or at the night of. So we want to make sure you can interact, and you can ask questions, and you can listen to this and think about, hey, what are some things that are coming out of this that I want to learn? So let's hone in on the first thing that I think is probably one of the most important things when it comes to money. And it's one of the most important things. It's one of the things that banks target students for. Let's talk about credit cards and credit. Credit is something that every young person is told is important. You can't build equity without credit. You can't get a house without credit when you're older, that kind of stuff. Is it really that important? Or on the flip side, other people say never to get credit or credit card or whatever. Is it really that dangerous? Like, what is your advice and your thoughts on credit cards and lines of credit and just credit in general, Randy?
Sure. So let me just start with credit cards, and then we'll walk through the other ones. So credit cards are they're very, very dangerous. They're very dangerous, and people don't realize how dangerous credit cards actually are. They really, I mean, if you don't pay it off 1 month, this is a simple thing. If you don't pay it off 1 month, you're paying upwards of 20% interest on that credit card.
Mm.
Like, that's significant. And then when you do that, like, the credit cards seem like your best friend, because then they say, "Oh, well, don't worry about like paying the whole balance, just make minimum payments."
Mm-hmm.
Well, truth of the matter is, as soon as you're making minimum payments on anything, you're really not getting ahead. You're really just floating by, and the credit card companies is making a little bit of interest, but they're making a little bit of interest off of everyone. And so they don't care. They don't care whether you pay off the balance. I actually prefer if you don't pay off the balance, because they're making a whole bunch of interest on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think where people get the idea of credit cards wrong is just simply that people view them as a necessity. You need a credit card to rent a car. You need a credit card to build credit. You need a credit card to rent a hotel room. All of these things require you to have a credit card. And honestly, if we take a big, like, broad view of this, the majority of places do require that you have a credit card to book a hotel, to rent a car, to do this. But that's not saying that there's not alternatives. And I'm looking at the alternatives, and I'm going, if credit cards are something that are like really stealing your income, why are you continuing to have them?
Mm.
And you will have to work a little bit harder to make sure that you go to the right rental agency that will give you the option to put a cash down payment down, or a debit card. You are going to have to go to a hotel that will allow you to put that, I think it's $300 down, as like a cash thing at most places, rather than
Yes.
like just put it on your card.
Yeah.
Like, you got to get creative, and you got to look for those things, but ultimately you can live your life without a credit card. And you can actually live your whole entire life without credit in general. This isn't
Yeah.
to say that like I'm for or against credit. I
Mhm.
think that society in and of itself believes in this so much that
Mhm.
like everyone just topples on it. And everyone just says, "Oh no, you need good credit. You need good credit. You need to do this. You need to open up 5 credit cards. You need to make sure you pay off double time, all this stuff to make good credit." And ultimately, it's just not true. One of the biggest areas that I find that people are like, "Oh, well, I can't buy a car if I don't build credit." Well, for one, I never encourage you to put a car on payments, so there you go.
Hey, man,
Build up some
hey,
cash, buy a car.
I totally, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, it's interesting. I I find it interesting. I like that you talk about the different options because even hotels, you can do a lot of that deposit. You can put on a
Mhm.
debit Visa now. It'll cost you money. Like it's almost like putting cash down, right? They just charge your
Mhm.
debit card the 300 or usually it's $100 now. It's not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Usually they'll do that now if you just ask. So yeah, I mean, so I didn't have a credit score for a long time because I didn't have terrible debt or anything, but I just wasn't good at paying my bills on time when I was
Mhm.
younger, and I didn't get a credit. So that was like when I was 18, 19, 20. I didn't get a credit score till I was like 29, 30 uh, because of that. So imagine if you had terrible credit, it sticks with you for a long time as well with your credit score. So in a perfect world, I think having a credit card, if you're good at paying it off and you're not abusing it, and it's not a temptation for you, it it will make your life a little bit easier. That's it. Like that's all I'll say there, because
Yeah.
I think the world is too credit heavy, and I think it's credit heavy because, like you said earlier, like your point, they make a lot of money off you. That's why
Yeah.
people. That's why banks love credit cards. That's why they set up the credit kiosks and the special kiosk savings at Welcome Week at the university to rope students in, right? Because they
Yeah,
make a
for
ton.
sure.
Make it's predatory. Make a ton of money off you. So you have to
Yeah.
be very careful with that. So I like that you made that point with
Yeah,
yeah,
it's yeah, it I mean, look at the house you live in and then look at their buildings. Like
right.
they're clearly making money. Clearly.
Yes.
Like they present themselves as being like the saviors of the world, but ultimately they're making money and you know this. It's $1 billion industry.
And for buying a house, you can buy a house without credit because
Absolutely.
I didn't have a credit score. So my wife is very good with money, and
Yep.
she has like I think her credit score is in the 800s. It's amazing, uh, and she anyway. So we just got a cosigner right for our
Oh
house,
yeah.
and that's it. Like you just got to get someone to cosign, and obviously you have to make your payments on time because that's the cosigner's job is to vouch for that person, right? That's what that means. But
Mhm.
again, another way around needing credit,
Yeah.
because yeah, that's how we got our house. That's how we got our house. So yeah,
Yeah, I know that there's I work with a mortgage broker who actually can like put you into a mortgage without having a credit score
oh,
and
nice. Yeah.
and can do all that. So people always, I mean, that's one of the other big hurdles that people have is, oh, I need a credit card because I need credit when it comes to me wanting to purchase a home. Well, that's not, there's ways around that too,
Hmm.
right? There's like in the States, it's a lot bigger than in Canada, and Canada is much more credit heavy, but in the States, there's more alternatives to getting away with like not having any sort of credit, and you can live your life fine and you can get the same rates as everyone else and all that stuff. In Canada, it's a little bit more tricky, but there's still companies out there.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good to know. And so, talk about some of the other. You said you wanted to start with credit cards.
Yeah.
Let's talk about lines of credit, financing, all that stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you start talking about credit, like it often just relates to everything else, and then
I know.
you kind of lose focus on like
It's
the
like
one
it's
thing.
like the rabbit hole, like
Yeah.
diving into the matrix, right? So
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we can go back to credit cards. So I would say that I am personally not against credit cards. Let's start there. I'm
right,
personally not against credit cards. If you have a credit card, I'm not going to tell you to cut it up. I'm not going to tell you to get rid of it. I'm not going to like shame you for having a credit card. For one, I think that's the worst tactic to get people to like listen to financial advice is to shame them. So I would
right.
never shame people on financial advice. However, there are so many people that struggle with credit cards. And so ultimately, there's a few places that I really encourage you not to have a credit card. Number one is actually being in school. When you're in school, you have so much financial stress on you already that having a credit card and like opening up a credit card is just a big temptation for you to spend it. And almost it feels like it's helpful, but it's ultimately putting you more in the hole and ultimately hurting you worse. And then the other time I would recommend you not have a credit card is when you're trying to get out of debt. I understand that some people will argue that there's good debt versus bad debt and all that stuff. But if you are actually trying to get out of debt, I really strongly encourage you not to have a credit card because ultimately, as soon as you rely on a credit card, as soon as you rely on any sort of credit whatsoever, like a line of credit or anything like that, you are ultimately saying that debt has a place in your life and that you're less motivated to get debt out when you actually enjoy the debt that you have.
Hmm.
When you enjoy that credit card, when you think that that credit card has purpose in your life, it's going to be harder to get out of debt because you're less motivated. You almost have to hate debt in a sense in order to get out of debt.
Hmm.
And so I those are two places I recommend that you just don't have a credit card. And I don't think you need a credit card. You don't need a credit card going to school. You don't need a credit card when you get out of debt because we're going to, and I think later on we'll talk about this, we're going to teach you how to actually build up some cash reserves
Hmm.
where you will actually be able to use your own money, which is so freeing and so it just relieves your stress so much when you pay for an emergency with your own cash. So let's come back to the stats on credit cards because I think that
Okay.
that's really, really important to understand because I talk a lot about credit cards being so dangerous, but I've not actually talked about the actual stats around credit cards.
Let's do stats, Randy, and then
Okay,
we'll do savings after that. How to build up your savings. That's a good
sure, sounds
podcast.
good.
So
Yeah,
let's do that.
awesome. Okay, so the stats on credit cards are actually insane. You just have no idea.
I'm a little scared.
So, yeah, it's just amazing how they are able to like just manipulate everyone into getting a credit card and spending as much as they do on credit cards. So, this is a study that I read, and they essentially put two groups of people into purchasing I think it was like a big basketball game ticket.
Mhm.
And they gave one group of one people cash, and they're just like, okay, like here's your cash, you can keep whatever you don't spend, like go for it, but like we how much are you willing to pay for this ticket? And there was a wide variety of people in that group, and the people with cash versus the people with credit cards, actually they capped out at $100 less than the people with the credit cards.
Wow.
Again, everyone was on equal playing field.
Hmm.
Everyone was taking away the same amount of money. It just determined how much like they spent on this NBA ticket, I think it was.
Hmm.
And yeah, it just went to show you that actually in the study it showed you that they were actually willing to spend 100% more than what the ticket originally was,
And
which
why
is,
and why is that? What do you think? Is it a psychological thing? Is it, hey, I don't have to pay this right away, I can pay it later?
yeah, it's 100% a psychological thing because ultimately there's two there's two types of things that it does. Number one, whenever you use a card and like not actual cash, you don't feel it, because if you
Right.
pay something with cash, you give the teller your cash, they give you the item, but they don't give you your cash back.
Hmm.
And you're just like, it hurts a little bit more because you're not getting. So, say you walk in with $100 bills, man, it hurts to split up that $100 bill. I tell you, it hurts. You're just like, oh no.
So you're even talking about more getting off a digital, because everything's so digitized now, right?
Yeah.
So you're even talking about go further and pay for it in cash, because it's almost like an instant, instead of just checking your bank account later on your app,
Yeah.
right? Like it's that
It's a great way just to simply realize how disciplined you are and how you actually need to be more careful in these areas.
Mm,
I don't carry a lot of cash. I have like some cash on me, but I use a debit card, which is safer than a credit card, which is what I'll explain now.
okay.
So, when you use a credit card, number one, there's more incentives with a credit card. There's cash back, there's air miles, there's all of this stuff. So instantly in your brain is being like, oh yeah, like if we just spend a little bit more, we'll get more air miles, we'll get more cash back, we'll do all of this stuff. Yeah, it doesn't work out great, but that's psychologically what's going on in your head.
Mm,
And then it's also because there's actual no money connected to your credit card, it's also psychological, because then you think you don't have a second thought when swiping that card, because you're like, oh, well, like there's no money on this, swipe.
right.
You don't think about it. Whereas with a debit card, you at least know where that money is coming from. That money
Mm,
is coming from your bank. And I would hope that you have a rough idea what's in your bank account, but I understand some people are really fearful about knowing that number. but
yeah.
but yeah, and so like when you use a debit card, you at least know that that money's coming out from your bank. And so if the item is $300 for say, if the item is $300, you are looking at that and being like, oh, I only have $1,000 in my account. This means I'm only left with $700. Do I really need this?
Mm,
And it takes that extra split second to make or reserve yourself from making that decision. Be like, oh, maybe I don't actually need this. And then you like either downgrade or you just walk away altogether.
that's good.
Yeah.
I like that. And that our brains are wired that way. That's why there's casinos. That's why there's apps. That's why it's all geared towards feeding that side of our human nature, social media, right?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
so Randy, what are some other stats, if there are any, you want to share before we move on to savings?
Sure, absolutely. So, although they say that you can spend upwards of 100% more on your purchases,
Hmm.
the average is about 30. So, you might be thinking, oh, that's not too bad. But ultimately, if you're only getting 5% cash back on your card,
Hmm.
you're still losing 25%. You're still spending 25% more on that purchase. It's the same. I'll do an analogy here. It's the same as walking into a store and seeing two pairs of jeans, one's $100 and one's $70. If you come into that store with only your credit card, you are more likely to purchase that $100 pair of jeans or increase from there. If you come in with only a debit card, you are actually more likely to purchase that $70 pair of jeans or something lower or walk away in general.
Mm,
And then like I said before, if you come in with cash, oh, it's a game changer, because if you come in with $100 bill and you only get 30 back, oh, that hurts.
hmm.
That hurts.
Yeah.
So you're more likely to just walk out the door when you come in with cash. But so yeah, this whole, you get air miles, you get cash back. That's all fine and dandy when you have the discipline that goes with it, and when you know that you're mentally not getting like ruined by the credit card companies, which they're a billion-dollar industry. I'm pretty convinced that everyone who owns a credit card is getting taken at least a little bit with them.
Yeah.
I'm just convinced on that.
So you are, oh, I mean, that's, yeah, they're making tons of money off people, right? So,
Yeah.
and the further you
Yeah.
go into debt, especially when you start getting secondary cards to pay off your one card, like it's just a whole
Yeah.
vicious cycle of, and it's really hard to get out of that. So,
hmm
is there a point where you should cut credit cards up? Is there a point, like, what's that advice you would give? Like, if someone has, say, like more than one credit card, like, is there a point where someone should just cut them all up? And
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I do believe in the mentality of cutting up your credit cards for sure, because especially if your main source of debt is credit card debt, which honestly, it's a pretty big stat out there.
yeah,
It's pretty significant. I would say that if you're wanting to get out of that debt, yes, absolutely. If you find yourself realizing that, oh man, like I'm very undisciplined with my credit cards, yes, cut it up, get it out of your life. Like you do not need that hanging around. In fact, I even encourage some people to close their accounts
yeah,
because with all the digital stuff we have on your phones or whatever else, like it's so tempting to like just go back in and be like, oh, I'll just use my phone instead. I'll put it on credit this month. I'll do this. I'll do that. So yeah, I 100% encourage people, if they want to just directly cut up their credit cards. I do not see that as an unhealthy thing at all. It might ruin your credit a little bit, but ultimately you'll be able to build that back when you're more disciplined,
right,
or you'll be able to think about it and be like, you know what, I actually hate debt.
yeah,
I'm actually not going back into debt, so therefore I'm going to get creative. I'm going to find different solutions to buy the things I want to buy.
nice.
Yeah.
Let's talk about money in a good way. Let's talk about savings. I know like credit always takes up so much time, and I think it is. I think credit is important to take up time for students and for young people
Yeah.
because you are so targeted at that age. So we could do a whole episode on just credit. So
Yes, we
if
could.
you
Yeah.
have any questions on anything, like even financing, like don't finance. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. That kind of thing. That's my advice for that. But just understand, like, this is something that may go further in on March 6th, but it is a huge thing. So, so
If you're a pet lover, pretend that everything you want to finance is you're financing your pet, and that the repo man is going to come and take your
that's
pet.
a good idea. I like that. It's a good idea. That's a good way of looking
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah, because how bad would it be if someone came up to your door and just took away your pet, took
Right.
away something that you loved?
Right.
It would be devastating. You can handle them taking away, like your car or like your fridge, but think about it as, okay, that's your pet. That's something that you love, and trust me, you'll think twice before financing.
So that's good. So let's talk about savings. What are some tips that you have? Uh, you know, like generally, let's work with like minimum wage, right, or
Sure.
low income. But what are some tips that you have for building savings? Can you always be building savings? Do you have to make a certain amount? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the key to saving anything starts with simply prioritizing something. So you need to prioritize what you want to win at. You're not going to win at your finances by not prioritizing your finances. So no matter how much you could make 100,000 a year, you could make 30,000 a year, you could make 20,000 a year. You could make part time just to kind of like do your basics or whatever, and you could still be saving.
Hmm.
Some months are more difficult than others, some seasons are more difficult than others, but by prioritizing, by putting savings first, your chances of actually being able to save money goes up increasingly. So let's look at this practically. How do you practically do that? So you practically do that by, instead of not budgeting, you should budget.
Yeah.
And when you budget, you need to be very intentional about paying yourself first, is generally what is called in the industry. You want to pay yourself first. You want to put some savings away first. And so what that looks like is generally, I mean, most finance people will agree with me, 10% works really well. So if you want to save money, you have to put it first on your budget. And we have this great thing that's called automatic payments. You can automatically send 10% of your income directly to a different account so that you don't have to see it until you need it for your savings account. So then you focus and you live on the rest. You got to pay yourself first.
What are some, this goes into a later question, but we'll do it
Yeah,
now. What are some special accounts you would recommend people opening to build up your savings?
for sure. So it's not so much the accounts that really matter. It's the what you put inside the accounts. If we're talking about savings, a simple TFSA is fantastic. So if you're
And what is
not
that?
making
Can
a
you,
lot of money,
what's that
sorry,
called? Tax-free savings account, right?
tax-free savings account.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Sorry about that.
that's okay.
Yeah. It's called a tax-free savings account. And basically what it does is all the money that goes into it has been pre-taxed, just like every money that we make is pre-taxed. It goes into this account. But then once it's in this account, it is actually sheltered from tax. So therefore, it can just sit there and grow. It's not going to get hit with tax when you pull it out. And so the money that's sitting in there right now is going to be your money whenever you want to pull it out. You are not hit with taxes when you pull it out. You are not hit with fees. You are not hit with anything. In fact, you're making a little bit of interest on that when it's sitting in there. The
And
key
yeah,
to a tax-free savings account is actually putting something in there that, if you want to make money on your money, is putting vehicles in there that actually make you money. You can't just open up a TFSA and expect that you're going to make a ton of money on that. You're just not. I find a lot of people just use TFSAs as like holding accounts where they just hold their money there. A lot of people use them for their emergency funds and stuff like that. Fantastic place where your intention is not to make money on your money, but your intention is just to hold your money where it's at so that you can use it and not get hit with a bunch of taxes when you want to pull it out. So yeah, like
I have
yeah,
one. uh,
cool.
my wife and I, like my wife got me to open one. She opened one when she turned 18. I think it's 18.
Okay.
So when I
Yeah.
started dating her, when we knew we were going to get married, I opened one, and that's like I treat it as my main way of saving. That's like my savings account. So I do
Mm-hmm.
have savings in my bank, that I see every day.
Yeah.
But when I think I'm in danger of spending that money, I always move it over because, like you said before, if I want to get my TFSA money out, I have to contact my advisor, and
Okay.
I can't just. I have that set up where I have a person I have to email to get that money out. Again, it's that one extra step instead of
Yep.
just moving it on my app. You know what I mean? And
Yep. Very
so
cool.
that's. And by the way, it will. The only thing about TFSAs, and this is what some people will say, they can shrink depending on the market. Like there is a possibility and a risk of losing some of your money, or like even if there's high inflation or whatever. But through COVID, I lost like $10. Like it shrunk, you know what I mean? Like it actually
Yeah.
wasn't that bad. And so like TFSAs are amazing. I love mine. And it's yeah, we don't make a lot of money, but we're rich because of that thing. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a good place to put your money. Like there's many other options on where to put your money, but honestly, for simplicity's sake, when you're just wanting your money to like be held in a safe account where you're not going to lose that money, TFSA is the way to go. There's RRSPs, which is registered retirement savings accounts or savings plans, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they are essentially built for retirement. So with those, you're very restricted to like what you can do with that money because it's supposed to be locked in and growing and then only taken out when you retire.
Hmm.
Those do give you a tax deduction, and when you pull out that money, you do have to pay tax on that money that you pull out. But ultimately, unless you're working for a company that's doing like a match with you, like for your retirement or whatever, you don't need to worry about those too much. Like if you've maxed out your TFSA, then absolutely pound that
Yeah,
RSP for
yeah,
sure, for sure, for sure. But when we're talking to this kind of audience, yeah, TFSA is the safest way to go. It's the best way to go. And you can invest inside of TFSA to
yeah,
like make yourselves like 8 to 12% if you want. You can have it as just like holding money where it's just there for like rainy days, or you can use it for you're saving up for a house. You can do all of that with the TFSA. So,
yeah. And you can get automatic payments coming out of your account too for them. So you can set
yeah.
up, $100 a month or $200 a month, and it's all done through your financial advisor. We're with Sun Life, right? So it's
Oh,
all
yeah.
through them. So yeah, so that's really good. Thank you, Randy, for that.
Yeah.
And I even like your aspect of paying yourself first. That's a good way of looking at it. What are some, I know you have a specific way of growing, not growing, like this isn't financial advice or anything like that, but you have a mindset. You wrote a whole book around a mindset of looking at money and through generosity, right? And
Yeah.
so you talked about paying yourself first. And I think during the November night, you talked about being generous with what you are bringing in as well. And that's another way of changing your mindset with how you look at money. So
Hmm.
just talk a bit about that. What is your philosophy when it comes to being generous, and how does it benefit the person with the money?
Absolutely. So, yes. So the book is called Give, Live, Save, and it's a simple title. I didn't want to get creative. I thought, you know what? Let's just put the three words that actually like describe the book in the title. So that's what I did. So, the way that I have it framed up is that I always encourage people to give first. That's their first non-negotiable that I believe that people should like do in their life and in their budget. So you give first because it softens your heart, makes you a better person. It creates a discipline inside you that forces you to live on less than you make. When you can force yourself to live on less than you make, then you start to feel like you're winning actually. And it's a very strange kind of like this is why people have a hard time trusting me when I say this, but it's because it's very strange because you're asking them to just give away their money, and then
Right.
they go like, how am I going to like win doing that? How am I going to win financially doing that? And then I just look at it, I'm like, no, like you have to follow the process.
Mm.
You give first because the biggest hurdle is actually creating the discipline to want to live on less than you make. Because a lot of I mean, I don't know the stats, but almost everyone wants to live a bigger lifestyle than what they have. They
Oh yeah.
want to push the envelope to how much can I consume? How
Mm.
much can I get? How much do I deserve? And then they keep pushing that envelope further and further. And we need to stop that discipline. We need to stop that mindset. And one of the ways that we stop that mindset is simply by giving first. We give money away so that our brain freaks out and goes, okay, like enough. We have to stop now and we have to figure out how to live on the rest. That's
Mm.
it. We have no option. So it's forcing yourself to live on less than you make. And then all the other benefits that giving has with you, helps you be more generous, helps you live a better life, helps you stop comparing your life to others because you're too busy focused on yours. And
That's
ultimately, it
really
helps
good.
you think bigger too.
That's really good. I think in the age
Yeah,
of social media too, social media didn't create this problem, it accelerated it, right? Where
100%.
you talked about purchasing things because you want them and consuming. I think another part of that too, and you said it at the end there, is I think a lot of it is status. hey, that person has that thing. It's almost like covetousness and status at the same time, right? Jealousy
Hmm.
and like I want that thing, or that thing looks awesome, or that person looks like they have lots of money and I want that lifestyle, or that, it becomes a status thing. I mean, you see it in a lot of
It's a comparison
really,
game.
yeah, and you see it in a lot of famous podcasts that are, we're not endorsing, but like Andrew Tate's one of those people, right? Where he's like, you got to buy all these cars, and people think you're
You got to
doing
look the
well.
part. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's feeding. I bring that name up because it's students are in that zeitgeist of
Oh
consuming that
yeah.
kind of media, right? So
Yeah.
I love that. It's really good, and that's a biblical concept. I like being the pastor here, I guess, and Randy, you are Christian as well, but it's like, and I think that idea of serving others, it is a whole mindset shift.
Yeah.
It changes how you look at everything, and
Yeah.
it'll change how you look at money, and even understanding your money is not really yours, even though you've worked hard for it. Hey, this money isn't mine. How can I be a good steward of it? Right? This is a
Yeah,
gift
exactly.
God
Yeah.
has given me. And by the way, when you give to charities in Canada, you actually get quite a few benefits from that tax wise.
Yes. Yes, you
So it
do.
actually
Yeah.
pays to be generous in Canada and to tithe at your church and to give back. So um, as long as that organization has a charitable number, that's something you can ask if you're concerned. But I like that mindset. That's why I really like your book. And I think your mindset of, yeah, so there's a bit of a contradiction, maybe some people would say, with paying yourself first versus being generous. So how does a
Yeah.
budget look in your eye? Like, do you just budget for both categories at the top? Like, how does that look?
So it essentially goes like this. It essentially goes of like the give, live, save. So give is first.
Okay.
I always encourage you to give first, and then I encourage you to live second, which is all about making sure your basics are covered and making sure that your family is cared for. Because a stressed out family ends up costing you more money than what you want. Like it
Yeah.
just it's just how it is.
Yeah.
The more stressed out, I just find this in general, the more stressed out you are, the more money like you lose somehow. Like whether this
Well,
is
time
like
time is money, right? So
yeah,
you lose a lot of time, you lose
yeah,
sleep, you become less productive. Your mental health wanes because of all this stuff adding up, and it
yeah.
affects your performance at work. It affects your motivation, and it affects your whole well-being, right? And then your relationships will get strained, and that's where divorce comes in for a lot of marriages, because money is at least the top three reason people get divorced. I think it might be two or one, but
Money fights are the number 2 cause of divorce, and that's just below infidelity.
there you go. So like this is why we need to talk about the stuff that's real, instead of just pretending like it doesn't exist, right? So
Yeah. No, it's a
um
big concern.
so that's why you're talking about that, right? You're
Yeah.
living, and it'll affect your whole well-being. That's what Dave Ramsey even teaches too. So yeah.
Yeah, different kind of format, but yeah, quite
Yes.
similar in that. So yeah, I always encourage people to give first. I encourage people to take care of their family, and it's not one, two, three. It's an all together. It's
Okay.
make sure these three categories are covered before you do anything else, because the rest of your categories are negotiable. These three categories are non-negotiable. So I put giving first because it has the most benefits for you,
Mm.
like that will translate in your financial life, that will translate in your life. If you give first intentionally, give first with a heart of and desire to be like, okay, like I want to know where this goes. I want to become a generous person. I want to stop comparing my life. When you come in with that mindset, giving first will transform your life. Taking care of your family, although will transform your life and do all of that, it's still important, but that's why it's second,
Mm.
because there's just, I don't know if there's like less benefits to it, but it's different.
Hmm.
Giving can like can really make you focus on the big picture, whereas your family are, you're basically protecting your family.
Yeah.
As men, we are protectors, right? And so we are naturally, most of us anyways, are generally geared to wanting to protect our family, and that's what we're called to do. So I'm not putting living, I'm paying ourselves first because that's important. But the stress is that generosity and being generous first actually helps you in your family life, and actually helps you save money, and helps you stop comparing, and helps you just
Mm.
transform everything.
Mhm.
So you give, you live, and then save. And saving is essentially what the traditional finance people will talk about. They'll say, oh, well, you should be saving first. You should be putting money aside first. And I'm just of the belief that, yeah, you should prioritize that for sure. And that's a huge priority. But it's not going to transform your life the same way that giving will.
And when you become a partner in an organization or you are generous with your money, it becomes an investment in a way where it transcends a different level of investment within, as someone who kind of works off of donations, right? It's interesting who comes alongside of you, right, in that regard, because
Hmm.
you can't do stuff without money, right? So it creates
Right.
partnerships, it builds community, it's in a really different way, like because some of these people don't even come to the stuff we do at Enrich, but they are a part of it,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
connect with them outside of Monday nights, and it's really cool to see, even ask the question why, clearly you see something of value here, and why, right? And it creates those conversations. So it's a really neat concept. I think it's really important. It's biblical. It's what Jesus called us to do. So, and
Yeah.
conserve your money and be disciplined with your life so that you can be generous. That's kind of what I
That's
also
right. Yeah.
tell people. So, because if you're not conserving, then you have nothing to give financially, right? So,
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
And I will just add to that, just simply speaking, because I know that there's going to be people that, and there are people in this situation where they go, okay, like I just can't, like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm a student. I don't make money. How are you even asking me to like give 10% away somewhere?
yeah.
And it's hard. I agree. I want you to try. I want you to put a number down, and I want you to stretch that number, and I want you to go down your budget and see how far you get.
Mm,
Cuz I want you to say, "Okay, you know what? Like maybe I can't give 10%, but maybe I can give 5." And if 5 is a stretch for you because maybe you thought I should only be giving 3, put 5 down. And then for your living, make sure your basics are covered. Make sure, if it's just you, make sure that you have food on the table, because I don't like being hungry. I
right.
really don't.
Well, and
And
yeah, that's good. Sorry, Randy,
yeah,
keep going.
no, that's okay. And then make sure your rent is paid, and like your utilities are all paid, and then move on to savings. Put whatever. If you can only do 5% in giving, maybe you should be only putting 5% away in savings too,
Mm,
right? Like kind of match those, like one for one type thing, and then see how far you get. And if you have to come back up to your budget and be like, actually, you know what, we need to cut down to like 4% or whatever, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But if you heard the number that I said before, that you're thinking you could only maybe do 3, well, that's 1% higher than what you
right.
thought you could do.
I think that's a really, just so you all know, the Bible, uh, the New Testament, the New Covenant, there is no percentage on tithing. So that 10% number, we get it from Malachi, which is in the Old Testament. It's a good number. It's Old Covenant, which means we're no longer living under that covenant. So we, as pastors, we have to be careful not to take it out of context. Uh, a lot of churches keep the 10%. I don't think it's a bad number by any means. It's not
No.
sinful or anything like that. But I say all that to encourage you that any percentage is good when it comes to tithing, and God won't condemn you for tithing 2-3% if that's what you can do right now. And so it's almost like going to the gym. Start low and start becoming disciplined with that number, and then you know you might be more disciplined than you think, and you might be able to
Yep.
afford 6 the next month instead of 3. You know what I mean? Like you might up it sooner than you think. But don't sit there
And
and
you have
feel
to
like,
stretch
yeah,
yourself.
you do.
Like
Yeah,
I was saying, like you have to stretch yourself, because I thought when I first started it that I could probably only give 5,
right.
and now I'm giving above 10.
There you go.
Like almost instantly, I like you have to stretch yourself, because if you don't stretch yourself, you're not going to feel it. It's not going to feel impactful,
Right.
and you might give up on it sooner. Like you got to stretch yourself in your giving. So if you think you can only give 5, just put that 10% down. See what you can do.
I like
See
that.
what
I love that.
happens.
I like that. That's good. Yeah, it's the reason I said that too is just I think a lot of people feel like this weird guilt or condemnation or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
If you started at 10%, I tied 10%, right? Second Corinthians 9, Paul talks about the generous lifestyle. And he literally says, generosity and courage, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. And he's not talking about prosperity gospel. He's not talking about a fortune teller situation or genie situation. He's just saying, you will live, if you live generously, you know, uh, you will foster that in the community you're pouring into, and other people will catch, and
Yeah.
generosity will become a culture there, at whether it's your family or church or small group, right? And he says give cheerfully later on in this, so give what you can and start the discipline of consistently giving. And I like your mindset of starting high, Randy. That's good, because you can always pull it down if there's a month
Yeah.
that things go awry, right? But since we put the 10, we always give 10. We've always been
Yeah.
able to, so because it's become a part of our discipline and lifestyle. So that's really good. Randy, we're near the end here, but I just, university life in general is full of doing different things all the time. And as you get married and get families and stuff down the road, you have to add more things to your plate. So do you have any tips on how to live a balanced lifestyle? Do you think university students should get a job while in school? And how do you balance that? What are some tips on that?
Yeah, so I do agree that if you are going to university that you should have a job. I think that not only will it help you with your student loans and will help you become less financially stressed, because maybe you did get in a little bit of credit card debt, and you're working to pay that off because everything else is covered. You can pay off your credit card and there'll be less financial stress on you. Yes, I do agree that you should get a job in school. I do not agree that you need to get a full-time job.
Hmm.
The stats that I actually just recently read like showcase that 25 to 30 hours is the ideal when it comes to working while you're going to school. And there's many reasons for this. One reason is just simply that I know when I went to school, I had a lot more time than I actually thought. They have this whole concept when you go to college that you're just going to be studying all day long. And then, like, yeah, you'll catch a party every now and then, but like you'll be studying all day long and it's just the worst. And you got to do everything. But I didn't feel that when I went there. And I know some people struggle harder than others. And I mean, I was a C student, so like I didn't get fantastic grades like in high school or anything, but
Right.
I worked when I was in school, and my grades actually like went up when I was working, and the stats actually show that that is a possibility. And there's many reasons for this. One is just you get better time management. You stop procrastinating, because honestly half the battle is like teaching yourself not to procrastinate when you're in school.
Right.
And then it comes down to creativity and like problem solving. You realize, like, oh, I might not have time to like edit this paper as well as I need to. Maybe I can get my friend to edit this paper for me. And guess what? That might just translate to a better grade, because I know for myself, if I edit myself, like my stuff myself, it would be bad. I need someone else to look at it, someone else to tell me that like I'm a horrible writer and I should have never written a book. I need someone to tell me
Well, and
that.
you got published. I think a lot of people don't realize you need editors when you get published, right? Like
Yeah.
it's always, that's why it takes so long to write a book, because you go through
Yeah,
that process
yeah.
of editing.
It's a very long process. So, yeah, so when you're going through school, I do encourage you to have a job, even if it's 15 hours a week. Like something small that creates a little bit of an income for you,
Mm.
stops your student loans from getting too big because they can get big really, really quickly. And it just helps you in the real world. Actually, I just read this stat and it's really, really cool. So, the people who actually like work while they're in college or university actually come out into their field and make 3.9% more than people who didn't work in college.
Why is that? What do you think that is?
Uh, my general thoughts on it are just simply because the employers actually value that you have a work ethic when you're going to college.
That's good.
And so they look at that and they go, oh, like he's got actual, or they've got actual real life experience.
Yeah.
They worked when they're in school. They have the discipline to like work in school. They're not just there to like get grades and go party. They're actually there to make a difference in the world, make like do something in the world that's not just based on their studies. That's my biggest guess. That's kind of what the article suggests, but it was kind of back and forth. But yeah,
That's really good.
realistically, that's kind of where it came down to. So
That's awesome. It's almost like, yeah, like if you become, it just motivates you. It creates motivation, like you
yeah,
said, right? When you have a lot of things going on. and
yeah.
and is there like too much though? Like what's too much? Like what's too much going on in your opinion?
In my opinion, like I've known people to have full-time jobs in school. I was one of them. I ran a business when I was like in school, and some weeks I worked full-time, other weeks I didn't, but
Right.
um some people just can't handle that, and that's completely fine. 100% fine. Like some people just do not have the capacity to work 30 hours a week and then also go to school, right? Like I didn't have the capacity to work or like to have all my classes. I had to cut back my classes to 4 classes a semester because I was too busy working.
Right.
And so I think that too much is when you're on the verge of like burning out, when you just are realizing like, oh, I can't keep working like this. Like it's just, so I would say as long as you keep it around that 25 hours, you should be okay.
Hmm.
And like that's kind of what the stats kind of show, that like anything above 25 hours, you're kind of on that line where like if you're a workaholic, or if you're like, just a worker in general, like myself, like I am, it's easier for me to work a full-time job than like someone else who struggles maybe a little bit more with their mental health, or really struggles with their grades, all of this stuff.
Right.
Like so it all depends. So I would say just start small when it comes to this. Start by getting a job that you do 15 hours a week or 20 hours a week. And then if you feel you can do more, or if you like the extra money that you get from it, then go do more.
Yeah.
Like no one's stopping you.
You might surprise yourself too,
Yeah.
so you might, yeah, it's definitely possible. I worked, I was married at the time, so I had that support, but I worked 2 jobs and we never had to take out another loan for when I went back to school, because I'm paying off my old loans, my student loans. So yeah, so that's really good. Well, thanks, Randy. Is there anything else? I know we didn't really talk a whole lot about student loans. I didn't have student loans in my questions.
Yeah, that's okay.
We could do another episode on that. I guess that's a whole other animal. Is there anything you
Yeah,
want to
I think
say about anything else before we are over, or about loans, student loans?
No, I think we can do student loans later. I think that that's
Yeah,
like a big enough thing. I would just maybe just do like one caution on student loans. Like if you can avoid student loans at all cost and like figure out a way to like work extra, figure out a way to get grants or scholarships, go do that. Please go do that. Like we got to stop relying on these
government.
the government's like paying off this stuff for us
Yeah.
because it might happen, but it's probably not going to happen. So just be cautious with
Well,
that.
everything you borrow, you will have to pay back. Just think of it that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
and I think this came up at the night in November. This was really good. What you talked about grants a little bit and scholarships, and just so y'all know, like your university, wherever you're at, whether it's U of R, U of S, wherever, has tons of scholarships. So even if you don't think my grades are the greatest, or like, there's so many sometimes that some scholarships don't even get used because no one applies for that scholarship. So just apply for scholarships. Like, you never know what you're going to get, right? And see what your schools are offering. It's free money.
5 million are unclaimed a year
That's
in
crazy.
Canada.
That's nuts. So
200 million are available. 5 million get
so
unclaimed.
money, that's $5 million literally just sitting there, right? And for many reasons, one of them being students aren't just applying for them, right? So um, so apply for those scholarships because you might think low of yourself, but you might, like, they are attainable. You can get them. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So Randy, let's just do some shameless plugs for yourself.
Sure.
Where can we listen to you? I know you have a podcast. I want you to email me. I'll put my email. I'll send it. I'll text it to you.
Yeah.
Let me know what all your handles are so we can put them in the description of both the audio and the YouTube version. But yeah, just plug away.
Sounds good. Okay, so let's go podcast first. Podcast is called Mental Money, and it's all about bringing on different voices to talk about different areas of money to help us all win financially. That's what Mental Money is all about. You can find that really wherever podcasts are available. And yeah, and then my handles are Finding Financial Hope, and that's across the board. So that's I'm blanking right now. That's Facebook, that's Instagram, that's TikTok, the fun one. I'm working on that one a little bit, and then you can also find me on findingfinancialhope.com, where you can find out different kind of videos on there, and you can also just ask for personal coaching, and I will do some personal coaching with you to help you start to build a legacy for you and your family.
Are you on, like, you're on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff, Facebook?
I am on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
I do have a Twitter, but nothing's on it right now.
Little Twitter. Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and we'll make sure that that's all on there for the listeners and watchers. But thank you for our first enriched conversations. Enriched conversations. I don't know what we're calling it yet, but one of those
There you
three
go.
things, and maybe enriched conversations. I like that. So, Randy, thank you for being our first guest on that. We'll have you back again soon to talk about some different, student loans and whatnot. But
Sounds good.
make sure he's going to be live on March 6th in person at Stone Store Coffee Collective at 6:45 p.m. for our financial coaching night. But thank you for listening and watching. Please like and share with your friends. We like creating this content, but we think it's important and adds value to your life. So please do that, and that benefits us as well. But thank you for listening, and have a great week and weekend.
Are you good with me signing this off?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. As I say on my podcast, keep going, keep winning. We're cheering for you.
Perfect. That's awesome. Okay. See you later.
Thank you so much for listening to the Enriched Life podcast. You made it to the end. Just so you know, everything we do relies on giving from within our community and from outside of our community. If you are wanting to partner with us and become a partner financially, you can go to our website at www.enrichregina.com/give. And you can give through e-transfer by emailing or e-transferring payments@enrichedregina.com. You can send us a check in the mail, make it out to Enriched Life, or you can set up a Tithely account. Search Enriched Life in the Tithely app, and that lets you become a recurring giver if you want to give every month. And treat us like a subscription service. Treat us like your Netflix or Crave or whatever you watch, whatever you pay into. Give us $5 a month, $10 a month, $1 a month. That's all it takes for us to build the kingdom, for us to serve students. And you can go to enrichedregina.com/give to see where all the money is going. And we're very transparent about that. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.